Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fairfax. We hope you enjoy this sermon from a recent Sunday worship service.
Transformation is a word that's sort of newish in our UU vocabulary. It wasn't used in the language of the 7 principles, and it wasn't used in the language of the 6 principles that came before the 7 principles. Though the latest 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, certainly implies some transformation. The current language in Article 2 of the bylaws of the UUA, and yes, I'm starting this way, I'm sorry. I know. Transformation, it says. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. In this sense, transformation is about moving with the changing tides all around us, and this is important. It's what our UU tradition is committed to. And that's evidenced by the fact that we are supposed to evaluate Article 2 every 15 years, even though we kept the 7 principles and the 8th principle for individual congregations for nearly 40 years. But transformation is more than just changing with the times. It's inward. Have you ever had a change so profound in your way of thinking? Maybe you learned something new that obliterated what you had previously believed, right? Mind-blown moment. Paradigmatic shifts. Worldview changes. These things happen based on some catalyst that propels us into real change. And this makes me think of Elphaba from Wicked. I am just kind of recent to the Wicked fandom here. So I wanted to bring this up because I just recently saw it, and it was just such a wonderful example. If you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, I'm not giving anything away. But Elphaba sings these words right after she discovers something new. She says, "Something has changed within me. Something is not the same." And this is a pivotal moment. This is a pivotal song. She learns this. She says this to Glinda right after she discovers some worldview altering information. And she's not afraid. She's empowered. And it moves her to action. At the beginning of the story, Elphaba was hoping that the wizard would transform her into a normal, non-green person. But she comes to appreciate her uniqueness and the ability it gives her to identify with the hurting, with the outcasts. Her transformation is inward, built on new information, on a shift within her thinking, born by her intellectual freedom, and she sets out to change the world. Another word besides change we might consider for transformation is conversion. Conversion is a word I have historically struggled with. Because I was raised Catholic, it makes me think of the Christian tendency to believe that the Christian faith is exclusive. It is the exclusive truth. That Jesus is the only way to heaven, and that the consequences otherwise is eternal burning on a lake of fire. Not really the kindest vision. Conversion, though, through this lens, is one in which people don't feel much choice. People are given an or else that is devastating and frightening. An or else that makes us fear for ourselves and our loved ones and for everybody else if our hearts are big enough. And our hearts are certainly big enough. This fear paired with these big hearts, has set people out to convert the masses through missionary and evangelical work, to spread the good news, the gospel, that Jesus has come to save us from our terrible selves and the eternal fiery lake to which we're destined. We UUs do not ascribe to this hellacious vision, thank goodness. We have a variety of beliefs among us, and some of us do not think in terms of heaven and hell at all. But I am fond of the idea that heaven is here right now on earth. In theological terms, we call this a realized eschatology, and Reverend David mentioned this in a few sermons previous. Eschatology meaning dealing with the end of things, end of life, end of the world. The realized eschatology is the idea that the end is here. This is it, this beautiful planet. With all its beauty and power, this is heaven. And that we have to make it heaven every day. By loving one another, by pushing out hatred and violence, tending to the realities of fear, grief, and despair, and by taking care of our planet, our garden home, as we recognize our place among this interdependent web of life. We would need conversion in this paradigm we envision, no less than the Christian would, spreading their good news. This realized eschatology is less forceful and fear-based than a hellacious one. It gives us more agency and participation. But this beautiful world is far from heaven. It is full of work for those of us with big hearts. And thankfully, there are so many of us with big hearts. Faithful pluralism. And pluralism is that idea that there are many ways, and it is also one of our values along with transformation. It calls us to let go of needing to change a person's perspective to our own. It also asks us to let go of the fear that learning about other people's perspective is an attempt at converting us to their view. Faithful pluralism, and I mean faithful here because pluralism, like any theological framework, can be vapid and shallow if not practiced faithfully. Calls us to affirm the holy experience of being human and our struggles to understand the meaning of our lives when dealing with the sadness of joys of living and the hope for being a good person and doing the right thing. I stood in this pulpit not long ago preaching against dragons and our worship of them. The dragons are a metaphor for people who hoard wealth beyond any reasonable need. I believe strongly that our societal tendency to put wealth and the wealthy on a pedestal has done and continues to do incredible damage. But I believe in the power of transformation. And every part of me hopes that people might convert their lives in a way that helps this vision of a heaven on earth come to fruition for all people, for our one precious earth whose resources we are depleting faster than it can replenish them. I believe a dragon can transform. I believe worshipers of dragons can transform. I believe all people can change, whether they will or not. That's not up to me. That's not up to you. It solely lies with them. And that's the rub. We have no control over anything except ourselves and what we do with our time and our lives. The hope for transformation can be painful. waiting on others to join your mission of creating a more loving world in which differences are cherished, in which the poor and the weary find comfort and joy, in which we live in balance with our planet. The hope for conversion comes probably most regularly into our lives through our relationships with other people, the people closest to us especially. Repair in relationships often lands in the hope of that conversion, that transformation, that worldview change, paradigmatic shift. And repair can be achieved, though, without conversion. And that's important to know when that change just isn't coming. But that's for a different sermon altogether. There is power in the belief of transformation, the belief that things can get better, that people can change. That's why the title of this sermon is The Potential of Transformation, because it can happen, and it's not a guarantee. The potential lies in our willingness to change ourselves. And people have changed and do change all the time. People who call themselves born again have reported the kind of total embodied experience either immediately following a ritual like baptism or a sudden revelation, in which they literally see the world more vibrantly. Colors are richer. The breath in their lungs is like rapture. The sky seems to sing. These are euphoric experiences of people going through a paradigmatic shift and entering into a new worldview that affirms its belief in them and gives them another chance. Because we don't always do it right? And it is nice to know that there is hope for us and our wretched selves, which aren't really so wretched after all. I want to tell you this story shared with me by a friend who is a Muslim chaplain, she is a Sufi mystic, and this is a Sufi story by a man named Bayezid. He said, when he was young, he was so moved by the needs of the world that he would pray to God for the energy to change it. Everything looked wrong to him. He was a revolutionary, and he wanted to change the face of the earth. When he became older, he matured, and his prayer life matured, and his goals, he realized, were too high. He cried, I have not changed a single person, and the whole world is too much. Instead, he thought, my family will be enough. He prayed to God for the energy to change his family. But when he became old, he realized that even his family was too much. And he asked himself, who am I to change them? Then he realized if he could change himself, then that would be enough. He turned to God and prayed for the energy to change himself, to which God responds, there is such little time left now. This is what you should have asked in the beginning. Then there was a possibility. God's response is a little saucy there, huh? But it's to the point. We should start with ourselves if we want to have any chance to change the world. We don't always come to transformation at the best time. It's good if we get there, though, even if we're late. This is a story a mystic wrote, after all, about himself and his own life. I am sure with his big heart that felt so much for the world that he was able to do some good work, even if he was unable to change others the way he had hoped he would be able to. People put off this inward work of changing ourselves, I think because of doubt that they can do it. I know, I've been there. Many people are sure they've got things figured out well enough, closing themselves off from possibilities of the things they could learn. I've been there too. But as the book from this morning's Time for All Ages illustrates for us, there is hope. The yet finds a way, even when you don't, and yet knows you will when you think you won't. There is power in the belief of transformation, the belief that things can get better, that people can change. The potential of transformation lies in our willingness to change ourselves. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this sermon from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fairfax. To listen to more sermon podcasts, go to uucf.org/sermons and scroll down to sermon podcasts.